Right, so step one, you would identify the longest chain of carbons. What that means is find the chain that has the longest number of carbons. Most of you looking at this compound would probably go for this chain down here. I'm just going to point out the longest chain of carbons doesn't need to be in a straight line. You could, in actual fact, have this as your longest chain of carbons. You've still got 4, but instead of in a straight line, they could be in any direction as long as they're connected and it's in a chain. Step 2 would be for you to circle the branches. Now, the easiest way to identify a branch is see the backbone of these carbons. They should all have hydrogens attached. So if we look here, this carbons get hydrogens attached, this carbons get hydrogens attached, this carbon has got hydrogen, but it's got this funny looking bit here. This is what we call a branch. So circle that branch, and then if we look at this carbon, it's also got hydrogens attached, so that's fine. Now in this example, we've only got one branch. You could be given a alkane that's got more than one. Step 3 then would be number the carbons starting from the carbon the branch is closest to. What I mean by that is you cannot start numbering the carbons from here because the branch is all the way over here. So you're going to start numbering it from this carbon here. So that would be carbon 1, carbon 2, carbon 3 and carbon 4. That's you done all the hard work. See, when it comes to naming branch chained alkanes, I start naming it from the end of the name, and I'll show you why I do that. It just makes it a lot easier. So the first thing I would do is count how many carbons you've got in that long chain. You've got 4. 4 carbons equals butane, so the end of the name would be butane. The second thing you would do is the name for this branch. If your branch contains 1 carbon, the branch is called methyl. And then the last wee thing you would do is you need to write the number the branch is attached to. So this branch is attached to the second carbon, so you'd put a 2 and a wee dash. So this is your final name. This compound is called 2-methyl butane. What I'm going to just quickly do is show you, instead of having the longest chain of carbons this way, see if you were just to identify this line as the longest chain of carbons, I'm just going to show you that you still will come up with the exact same name. So the second step would be circle your branch. This bit now won't be your branch because that's part of the carbon chain. If we look at all these carbons in this straight chain, this carbon is the only one that's got a big branch attached to it. So circle that branch. The next thing you do is you number your carbons. Again, you would start numbering from here because that's where the branch is attached to. You would not start numbering from this side. So you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, then count the carbons in your longest chain. 4, which means butane. The branch is attached, the name of the branch is methyl. And then lastly, the branch is attached to the second carbon, so it would be 2-methyl butane. Okay, so for this second example, I've went for a compound that's got 2 branches. Alright, so the first step again is the exact same, identify the longest chain of carbons. So there's actually 3. You could have 1, 2, 3, 4 in a straight line. You could have went for 1, 2, 3, 4 that way, or 1, 2, 3, 4 that way. It's up to you. I'll always just go for the easiest one, which is down here. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in a straight line. Next step is circle the branches. So looking at this line of carbons here, the only 2 branches I can see is this one up here and this one down here. The next step is number the carbons starting from the carbon the branch is closest to. So on this line of carbons, I wouldn't start numbering it from here because the branches are away over at the left side, so you start numbering from this carbon here, so it would be carbon 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you are ready to name. Again, I would start naming it from the end, so you'd have 4 carbons, which should give you butane for the end bit of the name. Your branches have 1 carbon, so the name of the branch for both of them would just be methyl. But because you've got 2 branches, in front of that methyl you need to put this bit here, which just means di, which stands for 2. And then again, the branches are both on the second carbon, so it would be 2 again, so the name would be 2-dimethyl butane. Identifying the longest chain of carbons, just don't be fooled by numbering it this way, thinking that this is your longest chain. Remember, it doesn't need to be in a straight line, so the actual longest chain is here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so it actually looks like that. Your second step would be circle the branch, so circle the only carbon that's not in this longest chain would be here. Number your carbons starting from the carbon that the branch is closest to. Now, for this particular example, it doesn't really matter what way you number your carbons. You could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or you could start numbering it from here. The only reason being is because the branch is right in the middle. If you numbered it going 1, 2, 3, it would still just be in the third carbon. So that should have done all the hard work. Again, so to name it, I would start from the end. So you've got 5 carbons in your longest chain. That would be pentane. The branch has only got 1 carbon in it, so that would be named methyl. And then lastly, because the methyl is on the third carbon, it would be 3-methyl pentane. This last example, Nat5s, I just wanted to show you a compound where it's not a full structural formula but instead a shortened structural formula. The process, however, is the exact same. So the first thing you would do is identify your longest chain of carbons, then circle your branches and number the carbons. Now, I actually think shortened structural formula is better because it's quite easy to see where the branch is. So that would be your longest chain of carbons. The branch is this up here, and now numbering your carbons, you wouldn't start from here because the branch is over at the other side, so you would start numbering. This carbon would be your first, second, third and fourth. Now you've done all the hard work, you just need to put it all together. So 4 carbons in a straight line would equal butane, so that would be the end of the name. The branch has got 1 carbon in it, so 1 carbon would mean it's called methyl. And lastly, the branch is on the second carbon, so it would be 2-methyl butane.